BMW Motorcycle Owners of America present the Short Wheelbase Podcast. With members in all 50 states, Canada, and across the globe, the BMW MOA invites you to ride inspired. Learn more about membership benefits, including roadside assistance, tire hazard protection, and more at bmwmoa.org. The Short Wheelbase Podcast is also brought to you by Boxer 2 Valve, supplier of quality OEM and aftermarket parts and specialty tools, and by Air Support BMW, offering premium driveline rebuilding and performance enhancements for your air-cooled BMW.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 25 of the Short Wheelbase Podcast. We are here this week with Colin Busch of Worth Motorcycles. Colin and I have been trying to get on the line for what I feels like ages.
Yeah.
The world has been transpiring against us on this. We've had scheduling conflicts, pet deaths. Oh, my microphone just cut out there for a second, but I think it's back.
Goes to the pet.
It's just, the world is still trying to stop us. But anyway, we're here. Welcome, Colin. I'm glad to finally have you on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about your background and Worth Motorcycles and Airheads, and we're going to have a good time.
Very cool.
So for those of you guys who might not know Colin, we featured in episode 5 of the show, we featured his R75/5 track bike, not race bike, track bike. I originally featured that on the Airhead Misfits page. It's kind of how I got introduced to Colin, and we've been kind of chatting online ever since. As I got to know him a little bit more, learned about his awesome backstory and wanted to share that with everybody. So welcome to the show, Colin. Would you mind just giving a brief introduction and letting everybody know kind of how you got into Airheads?
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you, first and foremost, for your perseverance and for having me again. My background with the motorcycle thing, I'm going to back it up a little bit past the motorcycle thing and just give you a brief rundown on some pre-motorcycle details that are quite relevant to a topic that I think we're going to cover here in
Sure.
just a little bit. So prior to my involvement with motorcycles and motorcycle business, I was a touring musician. I grew up around a lot of people who played music and who had experience with recording and experience with touring. And fortunately, the people that I was involved with weren't the kind of like, look what I did, look what I can do. They were more the look what you can do, give it a shot kind of people. And put together a band with a group of friends of mine and
Cool.
Did pretty good going around the country, figuring it out. Back in the days of, this is the 1990s, early 90s.
Oh, so long ago.
Yeah, Xerox machines and the calling cards for making long-distance phone calls, kind of booking the tours by word of mouth, getting out there and, hanging out with your friends and making it happen and figuring it out. And got a taste for the open road at a young age in an environment where the answer to any problem was get together, brainstorm, figure it out, do it yourself, and make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Skip forward a couple of years. I stopped touring, still played music on a pretty regular basis, but stopped touring. And again, my involvement with music, I was always going to shows and going to art festivals and music festivals, and I'd always see motorcycles and motorcycle people at these things. And the more I started paying attention, the closer attention I paid, the more I started seeing BMWs. And I got to meet some of the people that had those bikes, and they were, freaky batch of individuals. They were not what you would call the typical biker type. And once again, had the great fortune of running into people who were very inclined to give me pointers and tips and, kind of that same sort of like, not look what I can do, but look what you can do. Yeah, get one of these things. Check it out.
That DIY ethos, right? Yeah.
And I think a lot of that came from the, at the time, the bikes that were most readily available were, in fact, the carbureted 2-valve twins, which are as you very well know, very easily self-serviced with very little tooling or background. You could kind of keep those things going for quite a long while. So my interest in those bikes led to an obsession with those bikes, which then led to a career in those bikes. And how that happened, this is where we get into the like, you can't make this up, I don't care if you believe me or not phase of the background story. I acquired my first, it was a 1972 R75/5 that was well taken care of, but needed a little TLC. And there was a local shop in Southern Maryland. I was living in North Baltimore at the time. Local shop in Southern Maryland that sort of focused and specialized in the more vintage stuff. So I spent a lot of time there asking questions and buying parts here and there. And the then service manager of that business saw me enough that he made the comment one day. He's like, "Hey man, why don't you maybe think about getting a job here?" Just kind of like an offhanded thing. I'm like, oh, okay. Skip forward a couple of months. I was looking for another job and put my bid in and started as a shop assistant at the service department of a dealership that the service department was being run at that time by Ted Porter. None other than Ted Porter. So I got to kind of learn the ropes from Ted Porter when he was still working at a dealership in Maryland. And the head tech in that service department was Bud Pravin.
Yet again, none other than Bud Pravin.
So talk about a lucky spot for a kid with ambition and curiosity to learn the ropes.
For sure.
I got shown the intricate innards of these things by two very skilled people who took an interest in my interest, and that led to me becoming a full-time certified BMW technician, factory certified tech. I went to school in New York and sort of learned the ropes of all that stuff and really enjoyed it. And part of the process of my learning and growing in that business was doing more and more work with that R75/5 that I had. And
just one quick pause. Yeah. That's the R75/5 that I mentioned earlier.
That's kind of where I was heading.
Yep. Sorry.
So, no, you're fine. So one of the other people that worked at that dealership that Bud and Ted were supporting and helping out was Bucky Sexton, who raced an R75/5 or an R75/5 based race bike. And whenever he would do like these really cool, tricky upgrades, or like Bud was working on something for his race bike, I'd be like, "Why are you doing that? How does that make it better?" Or whatever. And got all of these little tips and pointers and tricky bits of data, and fused some of that stuff into my R75 as I was rebuilding that into what it ultimately became, which is a highly modified R something/5 that I wrote it and I enjoyed it, but by this time 4 or 5 years into my interest in BMWs, I learned a little bit more about this crazy disc brake things and being able to hit a button and the bike starts every time, that kind of stuff. So I didn't lose interest in the vintage stuff because it was still kind of paying the bills, but I did wind up buying a more modern bike. I bought the 1150 GS when that came out.
Oh, okay.
Put a ton of miles on that thing, and the /5 was kind of collecting dust. So I sold it somewhere around 2000, 2001, somewhere in that time period, and concentrated solely on riding GS. But then skip forward about 15 years later, I got a little sentimental, went digging around on Craigslist looking to find another /5.
It's never a good thing, or a very good thing.
Well, yeah, in my case, it was an incredibly weird thing, great weird thing, that I happened to find by complete and total coincidence. My bike for sale again in northern Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Some kid had it, didn't know anything about it other than some guy in Baltimore built it back in the 90s. So
And you were that some
it's
guy.
like, there's no way that that's my bike. So he sent me emailed me some photos of the receipts that I had from when I was building it. I got my bike back about 15 years after I sold it. And that's the one that I still have and I still take to the track to this day.
Right. That's so wild that it, went. I mean, was it only that one owner between you? Did it jump a couple hands in between?
I think it may have jumped a couple hands because I remember selling it to one guy. I kind of remember that guy, but this guy that I bought it back from was much younger. So I don't think he would have been probably in grade school when I sold the thing. But yeah, it bounced around a little bit, but miraculously, all of the receipts and all of my build data, everything came back with it. It was pretty crazy, with less than 20,000 miles since I had sold it.
Wow.
And little did they know what was going on inside that thing. So
right. And like who had influence over some of the changes and modifications.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I hope you understand, I look back now at some of the experiences, some of the people I played with and some of the people I befriended in the music business back then. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I was fortunate enough to be around those people.
Right.
At the time, Ted was just the guy running the shop and Bud was just the guy that, was there working on stuff. So.
Right. And now they have their own 247 Airhead episodes.
Right. I mean, it's not like I didn't appreciate them at the time, but holy moly. I mean, the legends that they became, rightfully so.
Right.
Wow. Again, what a fortunate experience. And, that bike being imparted with all of that incredible technical prowess and know-how and understanding.
Very cool.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate to have that machine at all, especially after that incredibly weird.
Yeah, that brings up a question, right? Like, I think a lot about bikes nowadays. Like, I'm currently shopping for bikes that I want to keep forever, right?
Okay,
like, I went through a couple of Airheads initially, kind of felt my way through what I wanted. I bought my conversion and said, I'm going to die with this bike. And every bike that I kind of want next is another one of those bikes. Is the R75/5 that bike for you? Is it something that you're going to just hold on to?
Yeah, I mean, it's your podcast, and your podcast leans heavily on all that stuff. I have some other things in the stable that I think are as exciting and interesting, and maybe.
Well, let's hear about them. We can talk about other bikes. I talked about a Buell a few. We talked about Buells a few episodes ago. It's okay.
Well, you can. Yeah. I have other British and European stuff that I think they're fun and interesting that I'll hang on to forever. Some stuff that I spent over a decade looking for that I'm a proud owner of, but also a little afraid to ride because of how rare they are.
Right.
Which again makes the BMW twin stuff, the air-cooled twin stuff, so appealing. It's so easy to keep those bikes on the road, and they were so bountiful when they were made, and the part supply and availability of bits and pieces to this day so readily accessible that it makes it very viable for kind of a
totally
day-to-day thing and something that you can keep forever. I have other stuff that I'll keep forever just because I'm petrified of riding it, and cumulative sum total miles will probably be less than 500 between now and the time I pass it on. But
right.
I do, there are a couple things that I'm looking forward to seeing back out. One of them in particular is a 1967 Ducati Mark III race bike.
Ooh,
that
very cool.
I will be passing along to a guy who I help out with his racing career. He races in ARMA, and he races in Bears class with a 1972 BMW R75/5.
I hear he's been doing pretty well lately. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, his name's Justin Hebel, and proud to say that I helped him with a little bit of that bike. And
nice.
He went through some of the classes that I was doing in Baltimore when I was back in Baltimore doing stuff. So anyway, yeah, he is going to be racing my 67 Ducati Mark III next season.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
He wants to race one of my other bikes, and I want him to, but I don't know about getting parts for that one, and I'm afraid to ride to that one. So
understandable.
We'll see.
Understandable.
We'll see. No, he's doing really well, and I'm really proud of him.
Very cool. So to kind of transition a little bit, you
Yeah.
mentioned there briefly that you did some classes back when you were in Maryland. I know you are now
Yeah.
not in Maryland, right? You're
Right.
in the Pacific Northwest
Right.
now.
Correct.
Seattle, right? Did I get
Correct.
that? Okay. For some reason, I had a brain lapse there for a second. There we go. Seattle, Washington, right on the shirt. Um, so, okay, you move to the Pacific Northwest, Seattle specifically, and you had a little bit of another Airhead oriented adventure
A little
that
one.
kind of
Yeah. Took a
started.
little ride. Yeah.
Yeah. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about that? What was this adventure and how did it get started?
Well, here's where it goes back to some of the stuff I was talking about with music.
Mm-hmm.
It took me quite a while to put the two and two together, but I had a friend years ago who, we did a lot of miles together and did a lot of traveling and camping and all that kind of stuff together. And we both saw uh, the TV show of those two British guys. Good gracious, I'm so happy. I can't remember.
Long way down,
Thank
and long
you.
way round, and long way whichever direction they're going next.
Happy to have forgotten the name of that. We saw that, and I don't want to dismiss it entirely, because anything that inspires anyone to go ride a motorcycle or be part of a community or travel or see the world, fantastic. Okay.
Totally.
But kind of back to that music thing, growing up in the late 70s, early 80s, MTV, whatever, it's easy to get it in your head that, without $30 million worth of equipment and a manager and a contract, you'll never get on a stage. You'll never have a record. You'll never entertain people. You'll never have fans. That's completely ridiculous. That's a total falsehood. You can do this stuff without that kind of support. You can do it without that level of financial backing. You can do it without management and handlers. You can just go do things and enjoy them and share those experiences with people in a way that inspires them. So a friend of mine watched that thing, and quite frankly, some of it I found rather insulting. Just my viewpoint on it at the time, and I still kind of stand by this, is like these two spoiled guys with more money than they knew what to do with more people supporting them, with more equipment than they needed, complaining their way around the world, making drama and making issues of everything. And the one thing that really tipped it over the scales for me, and I'll be honest, I didn't watch it past this episode. I believe they were in Mongolia and they were offered food by some, locals in this village. And they make this like joking mockery of this food that they were given by these people. And I was like furious. I was like, man, these people with such limited means are giving you this gift of sustenance, and you're mocking it, you're making fun of it. And
Sure.
You're it's like, man, I don't care what's in that bowl. Shove it in your face and smile and express your gratitude. It's like your job is to be part of this world in this fantastic way, and you're blowing it. And it really bummed me out, to be honest with you. So the friend that I was talking to about this, who I'd done a bunch of miles with, was like, yeah, well, do something about it. What are you going to do? Okay. So this little seed got planted in my head, and I set about for the next couple of years collecting as much bits and pieces of information for people that I knew, that I trusted, that I appreciated, who had done sort of more world travel-y kind of stuff. One of whom I met back in Maryland when I was working at a dealer. He had just come back. Here we go again with the "you're not going to believe this" stuff. But I met this guy who had just come back from this big 10-year-long trip around the world on his BMW R80. Took a bunch of pictures and did a slideshow, and talked to this guy and talked to him about his trips and travels. And, again, as it happens, I befriended Helge Peterson, who had just finished his book, 10 Years on Two Wheels. And he and I kept in touch for a bunch of years, and, talked to him a lot about what he did and how he did it. And again, sort of skipping forward to the time where I moved to Seattle the first time. He lives out here somewhere, and back in the early aughts, I again, kind of got back in touch with them and like, how did you do this? Again, this is before the internet. You had no money, you had no support. What did you do? And the general attitude he took was like, I don't know, you just go and figure it out.
You just go.
Go and figure it out.
Right.
Again, oddly, through music, I had befriended Austin Vince, who did the amazing films Mondo Enduro and Terra Circa. Very well-traveled motorcycle genius who captured a lot of the stuff on film and wrote about it and documented him and his brother's journeys all over the world for no money, with no support, on tiny bikes that most people would look at and think, there's no way they're going to do this, but they did it. And they did it on such a tiny shoestring budget, very appealing to me. So I met that guy through music somehow. And again, he and I kept in touch, and I got to meet his wife, Lois Price, who's also a very accomplished world traveler, and talked to them about how they did what they did. And the general tone was like, just go and figure it out. You don't need $1 million. You don't need connections. You don't need handlers. You don't need support, and you don't need any of the stuff that it seems like you talk yourself into needing. What you need is the dedication and commitment of going.
Right.
The most difficult step is sort of swinging your leg over the bike the day you leave. Everybody says that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, but what about this? What about that? Figure it out. That's what everybody said. Figure it out. So I put together a bike that I thought would be great for the trip, which was a 1995 R100 GSPD, which it was a 32 millimeter carbureted American version. Just kind of felt like it was a very easy to work on bike. And purists, this is the part where you want to plug your ears or pause this or skip. It was like one of the last 95 GSPD classics that was made. I think it was, I looked the VIN up, and it was like 25 or 30th to the end of that series of bikes. And the first thing I did to it was strip the thing of every single one of the PDC bits and pieces that was on it, and took it down to a really, really basic bike. The principle and idea being that when it went a-tumbling, because I knew I was going to put myself into some pretty difficult situations with it, I didn't want anything to break.
Right.
So I intentionally kind of like laid the bike on its side a bunch of different times in controlled environments, trying to figure out what touches the ground. So I dispatched with all the breakable stuff and wound up with one of those big giant HPN Cerbis tanks and some very sort of tidy bits and pieces. Got rid of all the stock gauges and all that kind of stuff. And here we go. I can't wait to read the comments. Got rid of the oil cooler. No oil cooler.
Oh no!
How can you? God, it's going to explode. You don't have an oil cooler. But anyway, so yeah, anything that I knew was going to be a problem or conceivably be an issue if the bike, went a-tumbling, which it did a lot. Mostly because of my lack of skill or training, but that, there again, who cares? Just go figure it out.
Yep. On the job training.
On the job training, right. I subscribe to the Jimmy Lewis school of crash bars and belly pans, which is like, if you're relying on that stuff, you might want to slow down and take a few more classes. That's the answer to everything. It's like slow down and learn how to do what you're doing. I put this GSPD together, dispatched the PD classic bits of it, and packed up some basics and took off. I had the tent that I could put together in my sleep at night, and sleeping bag that was comfy enough to get the job done, and some giant Ziploc bags as waterproof liners.
Yeah,
and a couple of pairs of undies and t-shirts, and off I went. I rode down Baja. I'm going to scoot over just a tiny little bit.
Yep.
Okay, edit that out. So I took off from Seattle, September 2009. I went down Baja, both coasts, and took the ferry over to Mazatlan, did loops around the whole of Mexico, all through Central, and took a boat from Panama to Colombia, and rode all the way down the west coast of South America, through a bunch of different countries, into Bolivia, across the Atacama Desert, across the Salar, down the coast of Peru, Argentina, over to Buenos Aires on the other coast, and just back and forth and up and down. I think I crossed the Andes. I did border crossings, Chile, Argentina, through the Andes, I think about 8 times.
Wow.
Back and forth, all of the Carretera Austral and all of Tierra del Fuego down to Ushuaia, which is the southernmost tip there. And interesting tidbit, I was at a border station between Chile and Argentina the umpteenth time, and just kind of threw my stuff on the seat of my bike and went in to get my paperwork stamped. And I was like, I forgot something. And I walked back out, and standing in the parking lot digging through some stuff on my bike, and I saw some headlights bobbling in the distance. I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. Here comes some more motorcyclists. They were heading the opposite direction where I was heading, but I just sort of hung out, any chance you get to see another motorcyclist or whatever. Waited for them to pull in and park, and the first person that stopped and pulled their helmet off was none other than Helga. And he looks at me and he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I looked at him and laughed, and I was like, "Same thing you're doing here. And it's all your fault."
So, I blame you for this.
Yeah, I blame you for this. Look at how dirty my stuff is and how many times my subframe has broken or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it was great. And what a fantastic reminder, and what an interesting bit of happenstance along the way.
Right, to cross paths
with one
someone
of
who inspired the trip.
Sure, one of the many reasons why.
Yeah,
but, I mean, if I had to point to any one or any specific thing, I would say, as a sort of the thing that lit the fire under my butt to do it the other way was seeing that Long Way Round Down thing or whatever, but then discovering Austin Vince's movies and books, especially Mondo Enduro and Terra Circa. It's like, yeah, there's a way to do this with your friends on a punk rock DIY budget, and just go and figure it out. You don't need to be highly qualified. The qualifications are go. The qualifications will present themselves to you as you experience the stuff. You don't need $1 million. You don't need people handling things for you. You need the time to do it, which that's difficult for a lot of people, but you can make that time. It doesn't take forever, and the world will be there when you get back. Right. So with a moderate budget and just the desire to wake up one day and say, "Hey, what the hell I'm going to go." That's really what it was all about. And Austin's movies and books really, that was the kind of thing that pushed me over the edge. I saw like what I don't want to do it that way. With the other stuff.
Well, sometimes it's good to know what you don't want too, right?
Exactly.
It's like, if you don't want it this way and you can't really do it this way, there's somewhere in the middle, right? You can always find that happy medium.
Exactly. And having that sort of like, thing to push against is also, that fuel, like.
Right. Speaking of figuring out, I recall you telling me previously about a repair that happened.
Oh yeah,
along the way, and this is I think this is just an amazing story of both figure it out, which has been kind of your mantra so far in this episode, but just also an amazing story of the people you meet along the way. So I'll let you tell the story because the details better than I do.
Yeah, I mean, some of the best experiences I had along the way were born of the bike breaking or me not being able to get somewhere at a certain time or whatever. And that's kind of the thing that I led off with when I began the voyage. Was like, look, I built my dream bike. If I only make it as far south as Oregon, I got to build my dream bike and ride it to Oregon. But it kept going. And every once in a while, things would happen, and I would meet people, and they would help me with stuff, or at least give me resources to be able to find what I needed to do things myself. And one of those things happened, the first sort of southern jaunt through Argentina. I lost my charging system, and I figured it was going to be, even though I'd upgraded all of that stuff to the higher output bits and pieces, I figured it was still the stator rotor assembly at the time that was, upgrading your stator rotor was about as best as you could get. And I did, and it worked well, but the rotor broke. And I would find a place, either find a hotel or a place to camp, and find an auto shop that had a battery charger that I could use. I would put my battery on the charger. And you can get about 6 hours using nothing but your spark plugs on a good solid charge on one of those batteries. So I made it pretty far. But after about the third or fourth day, the bike wasn't having it. The battery wasn't having it. And I was in this little town it's like a little coastal town on the east coast of Argentina. We can edit in the name of the town and make a little pop in a picture of this place. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head.
Send me an email later and I'll make sure it goes in the edit.
Yeah. So I was in this amazing little town on the east coast of Argentina, but it was a tiny, tiny, tiny little town. And I was hours and hours away from anything. I was in the parking lot of a hotel, the only hotel. There wasn't even any place to camp. It was just a very sort of flat part of the northern part of Tierra del Fuego, and there weren't really any campgrounds or anything. So here I am at this hotel in the parking lot, taking stuff apart on my bike, seeing if there's anything I could do to fix it. And this guy in a pickup truck kind of drove by me a couple times, and he pulled over and asked in Spanish, which at the time I spoke relatively fluently and could sort of have the basic Q&A stuff about what was happening with the bike or whether I needed to eat or sleep. So he asked me what was going on with the bike, and I told him that this component of the charging system had broken. And like, oh, it's a bummer. Can I have it? Okay, I'm kind of holding this thing, and I sure gave it to him. I was like, why in the world does he want this? And then I kind of zoomed out from the immediate conversation and noticed that he had a pickup truck full of scrap, aluminum, steel, whatever. I was like, oh, that's a big chunk of aluminum, or excuse me, a big chunk of copper. Maybe this is valuable, something to him that he can scrap it. It's like, yeah, sure. Yeah. I clearly don't need this anymore. Who knows what I'm going to do, or how I'm going to do it, but here, you can have this. He said, well, are you staying here? I was like, yeah, I'll be here for a couple of days, see if I can get parts, maybe have them DHL'd into this place. Who knows? Yeah, I'll be here. Cool.
Not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere. Or at least until I can find another battery or something. So right. Off he goes. A couple days later, knock on my door, and here's that guy. It's like, hey, what's going on? And he hands me a rotor. It's like, okay, what's this? He's like, it's your rotor. I said, okay. Why are you giving it back to me? So I fixed it. He's like, well, actually, my brother fixed it. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, I didn't want to make any promises because I didn't know if he could fix it or not. So I took it to him, and he has an auto shop that's in the next town over. He unwound it and did the repair and wound it back up and tested the continuity. And it works now. Put it back in your bike. See if it does what it needs to do. Stuck it back in the bike, fired the bike up, boom, bike's charging. Perfect. So, wow, man. What can I give you? How can I reimburse you for this? Man, can I get you lunch? Can I buy you dinner? No. Just if you have a chance, go see my brother. He loves motorcycles. He would love to see your bike. Go see him. Okay, no problem. Give me his address. Let me know where his shop is, and I'll go check it out. So he writes down the name of the place where his brother has this little auto repair shop. I went back into the hotel, and I got on a laptop, and I looked up on a map where his brother's shop was, and it was over 200 miles away.
Jeez.
So this guy made a 400-plus mile round trip to get my rotor repair, and wouldn't think of taking so much as like a sandwich at
right.
lunch in return. And that kind of humbling, disarming kindness that you encounter, people who really want to be part of what you're doing, and
right.
They want to see you succeed, and they want to encourage you and sort of keep you on the road. It's everywhere.
Right.
That exists
and
everywhere.
I mean, you hear stories like this all the time, right? Whenever you read a book or watch something
all the time
that's about adventure traveling, especially motorcycle-based adventure traveling,
right?
There's always these stories of people bending over backwards to keep you on the road, right? It's just, it's
Bending
amazing.
over backwards, maybe, but then you also kind of think about it. It's like, well, if you live in a place like that in a tiny town on the coast of Argentina, the likelihood that that's your routine, I'm going to get something thing for anything. I have the incredible fortune of being able to walk up the street. There's a grocery store a block and a half from my house.
Right.
Some people have to drive 10
That
minutes
makes
to a grocery
sense.
store. This guy,
Yep.
if he needs something, has to drive 180 miles, 220 miles, or whatever the case may be. So, it's not out of the ordinary for him. But for me, in that situation, needing what I needed, for him to get involved and to be helpful, it was so heartwarming and so amazing. And those stories, I have hours worth of that stuff. Part 2, 3, and 4 of this could all just be about the people who I met along the way without even asking, who just had to be part of what I was doing. It was really amazing, very heartwarming, very humbling, and very inspiring. And, that kind of made me, one of the parts of what I wound up developing, and one of the things that I hope we can talk about today is this, birth program. It kind of started with Bud and Ted and all of the people that I learned from, and then doing, new buyer seminars with people when I was working at a dealership, or doing sort of how-to classes with an operation called Seattle Free School, I was friends with years ago, sort of doing like, trip and travel stuff, or what Helga did. When I saw him doing the slideshow, like, how can I share that with other people? I feel a sense of like obligation to those. The guy wouldn't let me buy him a sandwich or get him dinner or give him gas money,
right?
But I still feel obligated to that guy. So how can I repay
pay it
that?
forward,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Call it karma, call it whatever you want to call it,
right? Yeah, a debt of gratitude. To those musicians who, when I was growing up and going and seeing their bands, and I had the opportunity to talk to them after the shows, they never said, "Oh yeah, this is what I do and this is how I do it." They said, "Yeah, look what you can do.
Right.
This is how you can do this. This is how you make a record. This is how you contact a booking agent. This is how you make a flyer." Without that, I never would have been able to do any of this stuff. And with that, being able to sort of get that DIY thing into what I was doing with motorcycle travel, and then meeting all these people along the way that were so gracious, so helpful, and almost to a point where, the only problem, everybody wants to know, did you run into problems? Did you run into this? Did you have any hassle? Yeah, it was a huge problem. I'll tell you, the big problem with Mexico, Central and South America is politely extracting yourself from the abundance of hospitality that you're going to encounter along the way.
Right.
You have to figure out a graceful way of saying, no, I can't stay at your house anymore for the 5th night in a row, because I have a motorcycle out front, and I'm trying to get to Ushuaia before next winter. Like, I have to hit the equator in December for the spring and summer to start in the Southern Hemisphere, to not freeze to death in Ushuaia.
Right.
The problem I had was like graciously extracting myself from how incredibly giving people were.
Because you don't want to offend them, right? You want to show your appreciation, but you also need to, even if your trip isn't, scheduled to a second or a day, like there's still a broad timeline that you have to hit. Like you said, there's weather that you have to consider. There's seasonal changes and things like that.
Yeah, what a big problem to have to, say no to people after the 5th serving of food that they made for you.
Right. Well, kind of circling back around here, you mentioned this debt of gratitude, this karma or whatever you want to call it, that you feel you've got to pay forward, and that you mentioned that what you're doing now with Worth Motorcycles is maybe a little bit part of that. So why don't we officially segue into talking about what Worth Motorcycles is, and what it is that you offer through Worth Motorcycles.
Yeah, cool. It's a teaching program that I've been developing for quite a number of years. At first, it was sort of seminar and presentation based. Like I said, when I got back from my trip and I was still involved with a couple of motorcycle dealers out here in Seattle, I would do presentations on this stuff. Like, if I can do it, anybody can do it, kind of a thing. And then noticing that the end of those presentations were more like, I would do the presentation, it would be, say, 35, 40 minutes or whatever. But then it would be an hour of Q&A. What did you pack? What did you take? What did you do for this, that, and the other thing? How did you handle X, Y, and Z? I started thinking like, there's a lot to be taught in this stuff. So like I briefly mentioned, I partnered with a friend of mine who was running an operation called the Seattle Free School. And we worked with Hosteling International and a couple of other organizations doing how to pack lightweight, how to do long distance on a low budget, how to prepare and how to sort of work on certain aspects of your bike, or what you should take or what you should leave home, how not to overpack. Kind of started doing more like classroom-based kind of stuff around that, and realized that there was like kind of a big market in all of that stuff. People have a lot of questions about like the how-to aspect of all these things, and then focusing that on travel preparation, I kind of realized that like you're cutting out a lot of your day-to-day interest, because a lot of people, for whatever reason, either won't take the opportunity or simply don't have the opportunity to take 6 months or 9 months or whatever it takes to do a trip like that. So how to translate that knowledge and understanding of this stuff and make it into a more sort of like everyday operation, imparting the things that I don't want to say take for granted, but I tell you spend enough time wrenching on stuff around people like Bud Provin or enough decades. I'm in my, ouch, my back, 29th year in the business, 30-something year riding and wrenching. There's a lot of stuff going on in there that I kind of take for granted, built on very practical fact, math, science-based principle. I don't deal in opinions. Opinions lead to arguments, and I don't deal with that stuff. But
sure,
15 foot-pounds is 15 foot-pounds.
Right.
That's that. 8 by 125 bolt is an 8 by 125 bolt, and there's a reason that it is that, and there's a reason it's that length, and there's a reason why you tighten it to this or whatever. But why? Why? And what do you do if? That kind of stuff. Making a, accessible, understandable, inspirational, educational platform that people can not only sort of, ask those questions, but also apply them, apply the answers to everyday real world kind of stuff. And one of the things that I kind of like realized, and myself included, you get really far into this stuff and you get really involved with how exciting it is and how far you can go on it, racking up the miles and this, that, and the other thing. But like, has anybody sat down and read their owner's manual? When's the last time you sat down and like really, so what's in that owner's manual and why? And,
right.
Once you've gotten through that, what's in the Haynes manual or Climber manual and why? So taking that sort of all of that, decades of technical knowledge and writing experience and all that, and putting it into sort of easily understood classroom-based segments of information in a way that people feel super welcomed. And by super welcomed, I mean, it's hard for a lot of people to get their foot in the door with a lot of that stuff. And where are you going to do it? Most dealerships aren't going to invite you into the shop and teach you everything they're doing back there just for liability. It's not. I totally understand that, and I don't get into stuff to a degree where I'm encouraging people like, oh yeah, this is real easy. Take your engine apart, because it's not. This stuff is very complicated and it's very involved. So what I do is I use like a very basic, very approachable, very easy to follow series of classroom-based and seminar-based events to give people a deeper sense of their ability to mitigate and their ability to have agency over the stuff that they're going to deal with, no matter where they're riding.
Right.
A flat tire in Chile is no different than a flat tire 2 blocks from your house if you've never dealt with a flat tire before.
Right. Doesn't matter where it happens.
Yeah, exactly. Understanding what a charging system is and how it works and the differences between fuel injection and carburation, how to deal with setting up your suspension and why that's critical for your, the effectiveness of your brake system, and
Sure.
how it's all interrelated. These aren't things that you kind of think about when it's a nice sunny day outside and you just want to jump on your bike and go, but it's all really critical stuff. And I think that when you give people an opportunity to understand that stuff and give people an opportunity to be more confident in their ability to handle what lies ahead, they're going to rack up more miles.
Sure.
They're going to get out there and go further and see more of the environment that they have available to them, no matter how near or far it is.
Right. Because it kind of gives them that confidence, right? You're kind of like building them up to be a critical thinker about motorcycle maintenance, as opposed to just being someone who can read a manual and when something happens.
Sure. And doing it in a way that goes back to that principle that I found so incredibly valuable to me when I got into all this stuff, or when I got into music, which is, skip the I did this and I did that and I know this and I know this guy, whatever. What I focus on is all of the stuff that you are capable of doing. Here's what you can do. Here's what you can manage. Here's what you can mitigate. Here's what you can understand about your bike and about your environment and about what you are able to handle in the real world, and learning the principles of all of the stuff that's involved with any motorcycle. And that's another thing. It's not BMW based. It's motorcycle based. It's any brand. It's all brands. It's 4-stroke principle. It's carburation principle. It's the math and science of all of the stuff. And
very cool. Awesome. And so how do people get in touch with you if they're interested in this? Is it all through the website?
It is through the website. Yeah. worthmotorcycles.com. And we are currently entirely on-site classroom based. I'm not doing anything. Everybody wants me to do like the YouTube channel and the how-to stuff online. And I would love to figure out a way to do some of what we're doing in the classroom and make it available to a wider audience. But here's the thing. You can't feel 6 foot-pounds on the internet. You can't feel, the steering head bearing drag that is required once you've gotten that set up properly. The stuff that I do is very tactile. It's very hands-on. It's very, so some of the classroom stuff that I do, I have clean examples of, I have a completely disassembled engine with all of the components that we pass around and look at and investigate and examine. It's really hard to do that 2-dimensionally, but at some point I feel like I will be able to develop more of a sort of YouTube-based presence or whatever. But for now, it's worthmotorcycles.com. There's an outline of the classroom stuff that we do, and it's ever-changing, ongoing. We're always building our curriculum. Wow, say that 3 times fast. We're always building our classroom stuff and all. It's a lot of fun. It's an awful lot of fun, and it's really nice having done it for a number of years. Like I said, having that experience in Baltimore where I kind of got the ball rolling, having people in there learning more about what they were interested in doing, and now seeing people like Justin out there winning races with a bike that he built based on some of the things that I taught him how to do in the classroom session. It's like, that's it. That's what it's all about. Go make it happen.
Very cool.
Go out there and get stuff done.
Yeah, I love it. I love the ethos. Just I've been it's been bouncing around in my head, and I almost hate saying it, but it's the Nike slogan, right? Just do it. And
It's the punk rock
yeah,
Nike version of that. It's like
exactly. Yeah. Thanks for adjusting that slightly, because as a person who's adamantly never worn Nikes in his entire life, it was like, I can't say this, but it's in my head.
Sure. I mean, and all of the people who I know and who I knew, who, same thing with the music and motorcycle stuff, figure it out.
Right.
There's one way to learn how to do all of this stuff, and that's figure it out. And
yeah, you got to dive in. You're
you
never going to learn it just by sitting at home.
Right.
You got to get in there and you got to do it.
Right.
And I think that's something that I'm trying to help, or at least I'm hoping that I'm exposing a little bit, both through this podcast and through the Airhead Misfits page, is just bringing light to the fact that not everyone out there is an expert, right? I think when I got involved in Airheads, and this is not a slight on the Bud Provins and the Ted Porters and all of these gurus.
I already know where you're going and what you're saying.
They're amazing. They're amazing people. But when I first got into Airheads, these were these names that it felt like, well, if I am not as smart as these guys, then what am I even doing here? And at some point I just said, screw it. I don't care. I'm going to battle through it anyway. And I still break things. I still mess up, and I don't know everything about Airheads, and I don't claim to, but I'm having a hell of a lot of fun because I jumped in, and I want everyone out there to understand. And it's why I love featuring bikes on the Misfits page that maybe aren't a perfect cafe custom bike or a beautifully put together GS round the world adventure bike, right? Like, there's more bikes that don't fit those classifications on the road. And it's because of people who are just willing to say, I love this bike and I'm going to work on it, and I'm going to figure out how to keep it on the road.
Or knowing how to get that bike to someone who can help them with,
Right.
And to address one of the things that you said, having worked around Bud and Ted, one of the most valuable things I learned was that I will never be anywhere near
How can you?
Right. I mean, I was around those guys every day for years and learned so much. But, my aspiration, even during that time, was to take as much as I could from them and apply it to what I was doing with my bike, sort of making it my own trip and my own purposes. And, taking that whole thing, sort of full circle and applying it to taking all of the stuff I learned on that trip to South America. It's like, look, if I can do this, anybody can do this.
Right.
My qualifications and my whatever you want to call it, that led me none, zero. My qualifications were I woke up one day and said, hey, this is what I'm doing this. That's it.
Yep.
And anybody can do that, truly.
Yep.
So the point and purpose of the Worth program is to impart that spirit and to inspire people and encourage people through education on the basics of what it takes to make that decision. And it doesn't matter if you're bopping around town or going around the world. There are things that we can teach each other and learn from each other that are super valuable to make all of this stuff so much more fun and so much safer and so much more accessible. And that's really the point of pretty much everything I do.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Well, I think we've about covered all the topics I have on my bullet point list here. So we'll try to wrap this up. But before we do, is there anything else that you wanted to chat about, Airhead related or motorcycle related or otherwise?
Oh, I'm sure I could come up with a million things.
I know. I figured you could.
I mean, I feel like, this particular exchange was a great example of us scratching the surface on a whole bunch of stuff that you and I have talked about over the last year or more, I think. Yeah, so thanks again for the opportunity to come in and cover some of this stuff. But
thank you for taking the time and grinning and bearing it through the scheduling issues.
Yeah,
and
man. We both had to stick with we both had to stick through stick it out through a lot of stuff, and
sure,
great getting to this point. But
yeah,
man, I just had the /5. I just took the 72 out to the track. There's a wonderful facility out on the peninsula here in Washington State called Ridge Motorsports Park, and had the opportunity to take that bike out a couple of times and run it through the paces recently. And,
nice.
The front straight on that track is so wide open that I was able to get it into place. I'm still running the 4-speed gearbox, and got it on the front straight, and buried the speedometer for about the 5th or 6th time since I owned that bike. And I got to tell you,
nice.
It's quite an interesting experience. No steering damper, no swing arm bracing, short wheelbase with a Heinrich tank.
I know. The tank on
going as fast as that bike will go. It's quite an experience.
Very cool.
Yeah, lot of fun.
Very
So
cool.
maybe we'll be able to pop some photos up. I'll email you a bunch of photos.
Yep. Email me whatever photos you can, and I'll put them on the screen. So yeah, I think we'll kind of wrap this up here.
Cool, man.
But if you heard anything here today, folks, like anything about the South America trip, Worth Moto, anything about the R75/5, or really jump in the comments. If there's more interested in diving deeper on the topics that we just barely touched on this episode, I'd happily bring Colin back, and we'll chat more and get deeper into the weeds on some of this stuff. Colin, thank you again. It was great to chat with you. Great to hang out. Ride safe and keep going, man.
Heck yeah.
We'll talk soon.
I do have one. Oh yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
I'm not going to cut you off.
We can edit this in backwards.
It's fine. We'll just roll with it.
Yeah, sure.
What you got?
The other thing I was going to say is, the Worth Motorcycles program is very much hands-on, classroom-based as far as, the segments of teaching that I'm doing. But I'm always available if people want to get in touch, no matter where they are. And I've gotten lots of people emailing me and calling me, asking for help on things or advice, if they're setting up a trip or trying to figure out the logistics of things, even if it's not covered in the class outlines that are on the website. If people are doing trips or they want more info on trip and travel prep or travel coordination or parts resources or tech resources with anything, even if you don't see it on the site, get in touch. I always love chatting about motors, and I try to make myself as available for everybody, no matter where you are, near or far. Always happy to talk about this stuff and help people on their voyage, no matter where they're going.
Rad. I love it. So yeah, I will throw your website in the description so folks can find you easily. I'll throw your Instagram page down there as well. So hopefully people, if they have questions or they want to chat with you about anything, they can easily get in touch. Folks, don't forget to like and subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff so that we can keep this show going. And I think that's all we got for today. We're going to actually do the real send off this time.
Send off. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks everybody.
See ya.
Cheers.
Ride safe, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on the Short Wheelbase podcast, presented by the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America. To join the club, visit bmwmoa.org. You can find full-length episodes of the excerpts heard here on the Airhead 247 podcast. The Short Wheelbase podcast is produced and edited by Nick Malozzi. Audio segments by Jeff Glover. You can check in with Nick at Airhead Misfits on Instagram.